right, so here we are in Hive Hugger. I have a special guest, Tara Chapman, who's a well-known author and beekeeper from Texas. And we just happened to run together here accidentally, but we're also in Hive Hugger now, and we get to talk to Peggy. And so Hive Hugger, everybody kind of knows what it is. They think they do.
Okay.
But what I'd like you to do is, Tara lives in a hot
And where?
in a hot environment.
Hot environment. Oh,
So
seriously.
maybe
Okay.
have some questions about what something like the Hive Hugger could do for the colonies there.
Yeah. Well, like in our homes, whether it's warm climates or cold climates, we insulate our homes year-round to help with both keeping them cooler and warmer. We have sold Hive Hugger in all 50 states now in our 3 years of sales. And the beekeepers in the southern climates, they send me videos showing me their hives, and they say there's less bearding. The bees seem happier. They're more productive in the summer with the hives that have specifically the crown panel. That's our R32 top panel. But beekeepers also say they'll leave the wraps on the brood boxes to sort of also help with temperature regulation. And there's been a couple research studies, one out of Canada and another one I think was Egypt, where they actually did research studies that show that insulation does keep hives cooler in hot weather climates too.
So in the southern states, you're having folks that are, because we don't, obviously insulation in the winter, I mean, it was like a particularly warm winter in Texas right now. It's quite frustrating, but that's my problem, not your problem. So you have folks in southern states that are using these in the summer.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Texas
Really?
is
Yeah.
our 10th biggest selling state.
Really?
Not
Okay.
only for keeping their hives cooler, but it snowed in Texas not that many years
That
ago.
one time, it did. That one time it snowed.
Yeah, but I believe they're using it for both still cold weather support and warm weather support in all of the southern states.
So it's like, so this is new to me, because
Okay.
so you've got like a two-part, so you've got the cover. We know that more than half of the heat escapes through the cover,
Yes.
right? And then you've got the external panels as well.
Yep, so it's a two-part system if you're going to kind of buy the whole kit. The component that put us on the map as far as beef hive insulation products is definitely the crown panel. And what's unique about it, and people might not believe that when they hear this is an R32. This is equivalent to 8 inches of foam board. And the reason that's possible is, think about a thermos. The reason that a thermos will keep your beverage hot for hours is it's a vacuum. And in a vacuum, there's no air molecules. And without air molecules, heat transfer is greatly slowed down. So some brilliant person said, well, then why don't I make an insulation panel that's actually a vacuum? So this is under vacuum pressure. If you took a knife and you stabbed it, it would go psh, because it would lose the vacuum seal. However, I don't want people to be afraid of purchasing the product like, oh, it's going to puncture with my hive tool. We've sold over 6,000 now over the last 3 years. If it gets accidentally punctured, we replace it for free, and we've only had to replace one in 6 years. This is PET film, so the faces are protected with a protective, like kind of like a thin plexiglass. And this is a 3M product. It's called VentureClad that prevents sort of puncturing by this aluminum cladding. So, because this is an R32, when it's placed on top of the hive, like you mentioned, not only is that where the significant amount of the heat loss occurs, it's the key to a condensing hive. And condensing hive concept is catching on more and more. Are you familiar with that?
Tell me.
Okay. Well, the original way, there's 2 reasons bees die in the winter.
Sure.
Cold exposure, obvious, but moisture is also a big problem. Because when bees digest honey, a byproduct of their metabolism is water vapor. And when that water vapor starts to collect on surfaces in the hive, and if those surfaces are at the dew point, that water vapor turns into liquid water. If that's the ceiling of the hive and that water drips down on our bees, that's why moisture kills bees. So a lot of people think, oh, we need to get rid of the moisture, so they put holes in their hive boxes and try to vent out the moisture, or put quilt boxes with holes. But when you put holes in your hive boxes, yes, the moisture leaves, but the heat leaves with it. It's like the chimney effect or stacking effect. So the key to not having the heat loss that happens when we vent our colonies is you have to super insulate the top of the hive. 2 to 3 times the R value is the sidewalls. That ensures that the top of the hive stays above dew point, right? And so the condensation will not condense on the top of the hive. Instead, it condenses on the cooler sidewalls. Because in a condensing hive, we want to keep the moisture in the hive. Bees need water to metabolize their honey. They need it just for hydration. And so the condensing hive doesn't try to get rid of moisture, it just controls where the moisture condenses. So having an R32 option at less than an inch panel is a really convenient way to get the high R value on top. And then it's just a really quick and easy way to do a condensing hive.
So it's going to collect on the sidewalls,
Yes.
and then they'll use it, or it'll like drop down into
Exactly.
the bottom of the colony.
And we've learned through a lot of the research that when you provide enough insulation, the bees actually don't cluster. With an R32 and an R8 on the sidewalls, and this is maybe a little busy for the viewers, but these squiggly lines are broodminder sensors, and so every colored line is a separate hive. The pink dotted line is outside ambient temperature, and this is in Minnesota. So the 2 top lines are Hive Hugger hives. The rest of these squiggly lines are other commonly used insulation materials, fiberglass, Reflectix, tar paper. And you can see even at -5 degrees, because here's 0, the Hive Hugger hives are still running in the high 60s to 70 degrees. Whereas the other commonly used materials for insulated hives are running, 40s, 50s. And you might say, well, that's pretty good, right? But the research shows that around 50 to 55 degrees, the bees start clustering and then vibrating their wing muscles to generate heat. That high metabolic, high stress state leads to more honey consumption because they're working hard to generate energy, to generate heat. And so when you bump them above the 50 degrees, so they're not going into that clustering, shivering response, they consume 30 to 50% less honey. Because in well-insulated hives, they're not clustering, right? And so they're free roaming around in the colony. And so they're just consuming significantly less honey. With this thermal stability, the queen starts raising brood earlier because she's kind of looking for that thermal support, because once brood is present, the colony now needs to raise the brood to 95 degrees. And if it's like a cold snap, and these old winter bees now need to raise the temperature of the brood to 95 degrees, thermodynamically, that's a really big ask, right? Because they're 200 days old. They're tired, and if they were in a cold colony, they're stressed and exhausted. And so spring is actually the season with the highest mortality. People will be like, how could that possibly be? I mean, February it's 10 degrees or minus 10 degrees. Why are they dying in the spring? It's because the presence of brood. Nowhere else during the winter does the colony need to raise the internal temperature of the hive to 95 degrees. But when brood is present, that's absolutely required, and it's not negotiable. If that brood temperature drops, the brood will die, and without replacement bees, your colony's in trouble.
So are you saying by using the Hive Hugger, you're actually encouraging earlier and more brood development?
Yes.
Are you concerned that with that kind of meddling, if you've got colonies starting to rear brood earlier, then you have to think about those food stores. What are those bees going to eat, right? Because so in Texas, we always hope for colder winters because we don't. And Texas is a big state, but I'm in Central Texas. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And so, like this winter, we've had a very, very warm winter. So our bees are out foraging every day, even though we have warm enough weather to support foraging. We don't have warm enough weather to support food like you would in like Southern California, right? And so you get these like larger brood populations artificially, not artificially, but in response to the weather. And then, we're always worried about late freezes. But my point is that we are concerned because we're having to feed extra because of the earlier brood rearing.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. So if there's a drawback to a well-insulated hive, the colonies brood earlier, they come through much stronger, And beekeepers who aren't used to this product and start using it said, Peg, it would have been good to know that when I open my hives in March or April, they're busting at the seams, right? And when that's, you have to be prepared to split, possibly swarming.
Yeah.
And yes, with that brood present, you have to make sure there's enough stores because the brood eat 40 to 50% more food.
Your management has to change with the expectation that if the product does, as you say, you're going to have more brood earlier in the season.
So prepare.
Yeah.
Prepare for that. Yeah. More food. May need to manage, prepare for a split or swarming. But if there's a problem to have, that's a good problem to have, right?
What's the price point on the unit?
So the crown panel is $52.50. The wrap is $56.50. So the whole kit's $119. During Nabi, we are giving a 25% discount. There's a Nabi discount code here for people who maybe want to try it out. I will say that we've had 3 years of sales, and every year the sales are over doubling, or not over doubling, almost doubling. And 75% of our customers are repeat customers. So they really, really like it. It works. I do believe it's the best overwintering system for Langstroth hives on the market. So yeah, it's hard to compete with a high-tech vacuum insulation panel, right? To be able to get that amount of R value in that much space.
And just for to make sure everyone's on the same page, just want to make sure people understand. You're then putting your, people, you never can underestimate what people don't understand.
Yeah.
So let's just make sure.
So it's very simple. The wrap kind of goes on like that. Yes, and then so the setup is you've got your hive box, you've got your wooden inner cover, and then the crown sits on top of that. We do recommend just a little piece of Tyvek that the kit actually comes with, just to tape the seams, because some people's woodenware is a little chipped or warped, so we just don't have any areas of heat loss in the seams. But that's it. No moisture boards, no quilt boxes.
And what's this? You have what's this underneath here?
This is just to keep the bees from coming up into that space.
It just covers it covers the inner. Okay.
And the kit comes with it.
Okay.
Just a simple way to make it an easy setup.
Okay, great.
So that's it.
Okay.
And I do want to, just give credit to where credit's due is, I was a nurse for 38 years, worked in ICU, chemo, ER, saw a lot of death, very sensitive to sort of the preciousness of life. Losing my colonies over the winter, just thought that's not acceptable. And since in medicine, everything we do to save lives is based in science. So as I went on this quest to develop a system to save honeybee lives, I wanted to be based in science. So I did a deep dive into the scientific literature, Etienne Tardif, Derek Mitchell, Bill Heschbeck. And so this is data driven. And it really was like, there is a scientifically sort of proven way that is optimal in overwintering hives based on the data. And so we basically built a system that is based on what some of these pioneers said we should do. So I want to give credit. I didn't do the research. We built a system based on the data. Once we developed a product, we did do our own research to kind of show that indeed it does work. But I do very much want to give credit to the researchers who, this wouldn't be possible without them. So
how'd you get into beekeeping?
I was a master gardener, and I was 8 years old, and I dug up my parents' front lawn and started planting food, and we lived in the suburbs. It's not like they're farmers. So I've been growing food and flowers my whole life, and so a natural extension of being a big gardener is bees. And I'm a kind of a tomboy at heart. I've always loved bugs, spiders, snakes. I'm the kid playing out in the dirt. And so I've loved bees, and I just love all living things. Like I said, being a nurse and being sensitive to death, I have a huge value on the preciousness of life, and bees particularly. But it came from being a gardener.
Okay, I have one more question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you've had the product on the market for 3 years?
Yep.
So you said? Okay. Have you made any changes along the way through your testing, and then is there anything to come that you can share with us?
Well, I mean, these are some minor things, but maybe not. Through the input from beekeepers, the very first wrap I made was not symmetrical. It sort of had a bigger piece here and a smaller piece here, so there was sort of an up and a down, an inside and outside, and a beekeeper said, why don't you just make the cut symmetrical, because then it can go on any way. And so he gets free Hive Huggers for life, because that was brilliant. It was a really good idea. So yeah, I guess, not a lot. I guess the people who have purchased it. At first, I was painting the foam boards, and then I went to foil facing instead, so that was a new improvement. But as far as sort of coming down the pike, this over here is new last year. This is a conversion kit for the
for the Apame,
yeah.
okay.
And this came because Apame beekeepers reached out to me, and they said they love the Apame hive, which I do too. It's great, all the insulated hives that are coming, but they wanted a way to convert it to a condensing hive. And so the kit comes with a plexiglass piece, and then just a piece of Reflectix, and then this is actually an R40 because it's over an inch, so it's a little bit thicker than our Langstroth hive crown. And so how it works is that the crown will sort of fit into the space in the Apame lid where the feeder typically would go. So it kind of goes like that, and then it goes over the hive like that, and then latches on. And so it's an instant Apame conversion kit to make it a condensing hive. And so this was our first year of sales, and they've been going very well. We tested it last year and had about 40 in the field, and beekeepers loved it. They said it had excellent outcomes, and so this is a new product. We also have a wrap for the top bar hive, the Be Mindful. We worked with them, and so they actually sent us a top bar hive, and we did like a foam board wrap for that hive body. And then the crown, curiously, the Langstroth hive crown fits perfectly on top of the top bar frames, as well as the lay-ins. Just by chance, they fit sort of perfectly, so a lot of lay-ins and top bar hive users are also using the crown to convert them to condensing hives. So yeah, a lot of possibilities. It's been a really great adventure, and who knew? I should give credit to my partner. So Henry, and he's hiding somewhere, but I was a nurse in Minnesota, losing half of my bees, and I started dating Henry. And he happened to own a business in high-tech insulation. So it's through his company that I learned about...
You were partners in life and in business.
Yes,
Oh, I'm so sorry, but congratulations on that.
It's sort of a love story. Yeah, when I started dating him, I'm like, you have what? And then I said, my bees are dying. Like, can you help me develop a product?
Peggy, it was written in the stars.
I kind of feels like that.
It's written in the
stars. And so, he had access to engineers and thermodynamics. And anyway, I absolutely need to give him credit, and I don't know where he is.
What's his name, Henry?
Henry.
Okay, well, thanks to Henry.
And so the two of us brought this to be. I never dreamed that it would get to the point where it is now. I mostly wanted to save my bees, but it was like, wow, this is a really good product. And I remember the day we're like, well, should we? So I left nursing after 38 years. I retired a couple months ago, and this is going to be our deal now. So it's been fun. I love beekeepers. The first year at Nabi, which is a big feather in our cap. They even make it here. But it's a lot of work running a business,
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, Peggy. Thanks for walking us through.
Yeah.
Fred, how was that?
That was perfect. Thank you both. By the way, and Tara, how great that
Fred put me on the spot there.
Really?
But it was interesting because we don't insulate typically, and so it was interesting to be able to hear.
Right. So for storage, summertime, are you recommending they remove this for summer?
Actually, no. So the wrap maybe because you have to kind of get into the hive boxes more, but the crown, people are leaving the crown on year round for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that was.
I did want to. Am I still being here? Anyway.
And so, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.